Hello there, skeptics. Steve here in Sydney. Can I just bounce a couple of ideas off you, just for basically for discussion? You can put your responses below the video if you don't mind. It's okay by me. I'm going to start off with pointing something out to you by means of a comparison and analogy, and it goes like this. No doubt some of you will have food allergies. They are widely known. Most of us have food allergies. If you don't have a food allergy, you're a very lucky person. One of the lessons of food allergies is that your immune system that attacks the food you eat wrongly. It's a mistake. It's some kind of gene fault you might have. You're prone to it. And the problem is that it's damn difficult to figure out what you're allergic to. And some of the symptoms can include hangover-like feelings when you wake in the morning because you never got a good night's sleep because of the allergic effects of eating the food that makes you sick so much. And you can also get runny nose, headaches, dyspepsia, gastric reflux, a lot of skin rashes, and of course you've heard of the severe allergic responses, anaphylactic shock, right? So that's very unusual, but your life can be made a misery by food allergies, and I'm quite certain that quite a few skeptics would be well aware of this by actually being in that situation. Now, if you go to an allergy specialist, what you'll be told is that many people are allergic to their favourite foods. Right? That's one of the lessons you'll learn. Many allergic people are allergic to their favourite foods, which means the things they like eating the most are doing them a lot of damage, poisoning them, injuring them daily. And one of the mistakes you can make with a favourite food is to eat it every day, because in evolutionary terms you are not designed to eat exactly the same food daily. It's toxic to you, and that seems to be the beginning of allergies. You're supposed to be a hunter-gatherer type thing, eating a changing variety of food daily. Okay, now you should know this. But it's very difficult to figure out what you're allergic to, and many people are unaware they have food allergies and just put up with the suffering. So they're blind to the fact that something they love and adore and savour and look forward to is actually poisoning them at the same time. And there's a message in this for all of us. It seems it's a cruel message that something you absolutely adore, your favourite food, can actually do you damage, but it's definitely the case in many, many people. Now, by analogy, this can also happen to our intellectual food that we choose to take in. There's spellbinding presenters of intellectual things which are so entrancing and so beautiful and plain riveting. Yet despite that, they might do you some damage because they're just too rich for you, or you're not suited to that level or that type, that variety of intellectual content. And as the example I'm going to give you is the very gripping presenter Carl Sagan. Comes on the TV and he does all these wonderful shows about the universe and stuff like that. Physics and science. He's a wonderfully entertaining man. I do confess I've taped all of his programs and read a couple of his books, and he is an entrancing presenter. But what if you're one of those people overly entranced by Mr. Carl Sagan, and that there could be a lot of these, and you dwell on what he says a whole lot, maybe way too much. You never get Carl Sagan's descriptions of the universe out of your mind. What you're going to end up dwelling on is possibly, in many cases, the idea that you're so insignificant you don't count and you can't count. You're an insignificant grain of sand on this huge Earth, which is really only a pale blue dot in a solar system that is vastly bigger than you can ever imagine. And that whole thing is really a grain of sand in a galaxy which is unimaginably huge. And all the time this man's talking to you with his golden words and his beautiful presentation, he's talking you into feeling smaller and smaller and smaller, less and less significant. That's a message many people can take out of listening to big numbers. Astronomical numbers can be toxic to people without realizing. Some personality types just focus on that. What can I ever do? I wake up in the morning and I'm faced by this huge universe. The numbers are beyond comprehension, and does it really matter what I do or say today? It's very easy to get yourself into a kind of depressed mindset that nothing is worth doing, nothing is worth pursuing. So, I believe some skeptics are overly receptive and adversely affected by this miniaturization of your own personality as astronomer Carl Sagan talks you down smaller and smaller and smaller. So what we might say is that that's okay for a wonderful trip. You watch the 6-part series on the TV, and but what if you keep dwelling on it like many people do? Now, depressed people dwell on things for way too long. They have like robotic thought habits. They can't get things out of their head, and they keep returning to the same thing over and over again, which basically means they're overly impressionable. They stay impressed way too long with things and dwell on these concepts way too long. Now, I do believe you can do this to your own detriment, going on and on and on about how insignificant you really are in the big picture, because you've got no idea how small you are, is the great scientist is telling you. And then you have other greatly admired physical scientists, biologists, who tell you that you're only here by accident at best. You're only a lump of meat created to feed predators. That's your entire function and nothing more. And don't you get any ideas, Johnny? Skeptics revel in these two types of philosophies, and I really think that being told there's no reason for you to exist and you're only here by accident at best, and then you're really so insignificant by Carl Sagan, that if you have a daily diet of this kind of stuff, this propaganda, for want of a better phrase, I know they're all current theories and scientifically based, but basically it's just a storyline, a metaphor that you repeatedly listen to. You gravitate toward it because you are susceptible. The end result is that you can get yourself into a very depressed corner where life isn't worth living. And I want you to think about this. When you first subscribed to James Randi, did you ever think you could go down this track of being a skeptic? Did you ever believe this could happen to you? Because at first sight it seems okay, doesn't it? Let's unmask a few con men and protect the world from backyard psychics or something, right? So, but did you ever think you could go down this track of backing yourself into a corner and figuring out, having it explained to you by brilliant scientists, that you're a nothing and a nobody, and you're absolutely wrong to think you ever have any worth? There's much of this in the philosophies of Carl Sagan, only simply with these great big numbers. And physical biologists, like, say, for example, Richard Dawkins. Almost as if to illustrate this philosophy, a skeptic wrote to me the other day, and he said, you just don't get it. He said, you have to realise that death is the only certainty. Right? He said to me, death is the only certainty. You have to realise this. Everything else is delusion and trickery, you see. So, now I've seen that tattooed on somebody somewhere. It seemed vaguely familiar, but I didn't expect to hear it from a skeptic. But so many of them focus on this aspect of their life that one day it's going to finish, and they're almost thankful to get there. They can't, if they could bring it forward with the FF button, they would, you see. I think when young people first subscribe to James Randi, it seems like a damn good lark and a good expedition to sort of see a few charlatans unmasked. That looks good. But they can be radicalised by constantly seeing extremist element entries all over the internet. The most vocal people continually mouth this preoccupation with the finality of death, you see. So I'm wondering whether young people joining the James Randi channel on YouTube realise that they seem to be joining the Right to Death Society. And I want you to think about that phrase. The Right to Death Society might be a better name for the skeptic movement? I don't know. Do talk to me about this below the video, but think about it. Would you have joined the James Randi organisation if you realised that it was the front door of the right to death movement? Now, the simple intellectual mistake made by a lot of skeptics who are talked into a corner feeling virtually nothing, so small compared to the universe, is that they see themselves in terms of physical length, say 5'6", and the distance to Jupiter is 1 trillion zillion miles, so therefore I'm incredibly small and insignificant. Don't measure yourself by feet and inches. That's the trick. You are what you are, regardless of what length you are on any measurement standard. You still are what you are. And I'm reminded of someone that worked in the Australian Reserve Bank, a friend of mine called Perry, and he used to earn a pittance of a salary. He was only a clerk, but he used to sign cheques all day for tens of millions of dollars. And people often used to say to him, don't you feel incredibly small and insignificant compared to all the money passing through your hands, tens of millions of dollars? And he was asked so many times, and he had an answer for people, and he used to say no. He'd say, I'm not my salary, and salary is not a measure of me. A simple answer that he had. And then he would always add something like, and the millions of dollars I write down on cheques, they could just as well be Egyptian hieroglyphics for all I care. They don't affect me in the least bit. That's a simple thing you can do with the massive numbers of Carl Sagan, and realise that you are what you are regardless of anyone's measurement standard. So that's just a little hint in what you might call creative thinking, maybe, I don't know. But that's how people can deal with big numbers and not be overawed by them and not become victim of big numbers and statistics and the massive numbers of randomness. Okay? They are really the enemy of some susceptible people. Big numbers are the enemy. And it's best to find other ways of just avoiding them. Pretend you can't do numbers. That's one solution. The thing about skeptics is they always seem terribly convinced that they have 100% certitude in their beliefs, that they cannot be wrong, that they don't need any more information. And I do hope in the last couple of videos I've shown you something called the ideomotor effect, which is real, part of you but concealed from you in a simple banal hand gesture. Concealed from you is something fascinating that you can verify as a real effect, and it has a physical output that you can see, you can perceive in the eyelids of a sleeping person. And I'm hoping that skeptics messing around with this ideomotor effect can realise that they don't know as much as they first thought, and they might actually reconsider their whole belief system and think, well, maybe there's a few things you could learn after all, and you were wrong to be so readily convinced that you knew everything because you had been to school. Not everything was taught to you at school. Please do remember that. So, to get you off some of these toxic philosophies that might do injury to some susceptible people while thrilling them at the same time, the allegory of food allergies is brought to your attention again. There's something you can do, and this is a real challenge, and you'll find it incredibly difficult. Can you go a whole day without thinking about evolution? I'll bet you can't. Can you go a whole day without thinking about the Big Bang Theory, cosmology and Carl Sagan? I'll bet you can't. It's incredibly difficult. If you have built much of your life around those two theories, then you're basically poisoning yourself to varying degrees. Not all people are. Some people can remain objective and distance themselves from it. But do remember, your favourite food, your intellectually thrilling food that grabs your attention and possesses you, can also be poisoning you. It's a known fact. It happens with dietary food, and it also happens with intellectual foods. So I hope I've given you a few things to kick around, skeptics. And this is all done for one reason only, and that is to optimize and maximize and improve your personal life.